Hi everyone, welcome to the live stream. I'm really happy that you could all participate today and spend this time together. We're doing a question and answer today based on some of the courses that we've had over time. We've done the chakra workout, the self-adjustment of the spine and the cranial sutures, and recently we had a course called aligning the energy, three ways to change your life, to transform the life. And that was based on that the life changes when we align our energy system at the deepest level. There's more surface things that we can do that were also explained, but the real core of change and transformation is aligning and balancing out the deep energy system. In a way, those fundamentals are related to all the courses that we do, but those are just the most recent ones and the ones that took, I guess, the deepest dive into those kind of materials. Another essential thing that's been kind of scattered through all of the information and courses that we do, the live streams, is the work with the proprioceptive exercise, the proprioceptive awareness. And maybe if we have a chance, we could talk a little bit about that as well today. I want to really encourage everyone to ask questions, especially questions that they have about material in those courses, things that they are not clear about, technique that they want to clarify, and so we could go into that together and hopefully make things more clear. I'm very enthusiastic to share this work, and I was looking forward to getting together with everyone today. I do this work every day, sometimes even a couple times a day, and I'm using the word work because that's just, I guess, conditioned way to think about it. But for me, it's not work. It's work, it's exercise on one level, but it's also enjoyment and entertainment on another level. It's also discovery and inquiry, and it's also taking journey into dimensions and experiences that otherwise aren't really that available. So I'm getting to I'm already long at the point where I enjoy doing these things, doing these journeys, connecting to the energy system. And as I work with the alignment processes or techniques, then these doors open for the higher involvement, the higher experience of them. And like I said, journeying, discovery, information coming to me. It's very fascinating. And that's why I'm so enthusiastic to talk about it, to share ideas about it, and to offer the courses that we have offered about it. The work with the energy alignment and which includes the adjustment of the spine and the sutures, that's like part of that process of energy alignment. I would say it's a very powerful and grounding way to move to alignment of the energy system. I find that depending on the day, and it can affect me, and I've talked to other people also to get some kind of confluence about how that these things are consistent, that it on one level affects me very much internally. And so how I feel and how I perceive the world around me, also internally how my physical body is working. Like sometimes if I have like an anxiousness, I can go into the system, find where, as an example, the chakras are not aligned or not synchronized, and synchronize the chakras, and the anxiety will pass. It will calm. And so the first thing is to recognize that I have that state. It could be sometimes a lack of enthusiasm. Like I'm going my day and I'm just kind of like, well, I want to be engaged in something that I'm enjoying, but I'm not finding it. And then again, I can go into the energy system, find the place that's not synchronized. And when I do synchronize it, balance the flow of the energy of the chakra or the connection with the spine and the cranial suture, then something changes and it kind of propels me forward and re-engages me in the things that I personally like to do. And I think that as manifested souls, that our nature is to be engaged, to be busy, to be productive in one way or another. It can be in a very subtle way, or it can be in a very external, straightforward way of creativity. But nonetheless, when our life force is flowing, we feel alive, we feel productive, we feel creative. And when we're not feeling like that, sometimes we feel disconnected, sometimes we feel a little bit lost. So on that level, I find this work to be very consistent in the effect it has to re-engage. And to what degree, it's not always like a massive engagement and I'm back into a high time. Sometimes it's very subtle, but almost always, and I use the word almost because I don't think anything's absolute in that sense, but it moves me to a space that I like to be in. So internally, that's one thing. My energy level can always be shifted by finding where there's a lack of synchrony in the system. As I mentioned, the external, how we see the things that are going on around us. And I think everybody knows that as time goes by, it's become quite challenging what's going on in the atmosphere, in the environment, in the social scape around us. And to gain perspective and to also understand where we can have a positive influence, especially if you're interested and involved in higher consciousness, raising the frequency, then this is a place where you have leverage, when you can balance your perspective, zoom out, and really see things from a higher point. So that's another way that is very consistent for me. And the other thing is with relationships, whether it be I'll just say more like a business type of thing or a personal relationship, that doing the alignment work every day is really harmonizing the relationships, bringing them to a point of where they can interchange at a common ground and to relieve the point where there's friction. And so I've really come to rely on that happening and recognizing. Always, I think that the starting point is you have to recognize and be clear with yourself, well, I am feeling anxious, or I am in friction with someone, either over an idea, over an emotional reaction, whatever it is, and then take it upon yourself to create a shift. And the most core level where those kind of shifts take place is in the energy system. And that, of course, is my belief about it, but I've had a lot of personal experience with it. So you have this internal, both in the body function, internal in terms of like the emotional and the mental process. Then you also have how the perception is working. And also, it seems pretty consistent that when you're making the alignment and you're doing day to day, small degrees of change start to appear. And so things start to shift around and also become more, in accord with what it is that you truly want to do. Now, along that path, definitions and the understanding of what you want to do also is transforming and changing to some degree. Sometimes a little bit, sometimes a lot. But the two aspects come into focus with each other. The aligning of the energy system, the information that brings to you, and how the external world and the opportunity of the external world starts to also shift and transform to match that alignment that's taking place. So I wanted to encourage everybody to get to this point where, you sit down on the floor, on a chair, and you go through some of these processes and get to the point through what we would call practice to the place where you look forward to it and where you enjoy it. And that's been a real great thing for me, is I have moved to this place where I really look forward to and enjoy doing this kind of, well, again, I'll call it work, but it's, we need to find a better word for it, I think. Journey, process, all those kind of words will fit in. So, I'm bringing this up because a lot of times when people learn something and it takes what we call practice, then it feels like we have to, and then it can be kind of something that's kind of on our back because maybe we missed a day and then we feel like we're not making any progress. And I can just encourage you that by regular use of these materials, that it gets to the point of enjoyment. Just like we enjoy, eating a meal that tastes really good, or going outside on a beautiful day, or doing something that's creative, whether it's artwork or a body work treatment, something that we really enjoy creating, that this is a whole dimension of pleasure, enjoyment, and creativity. So I'm really encouraging everyone, and that's, I know that I'm very enthusiastic about that. Again, I want to encourage you, if you have any questions about the materials, the reason why you wanted to, tune in today and have a discussion, I really encourage you to do that. You can either type it in with your keyboard, or you can put your microphone on and just ask the question. And so we really encourage you to do that. So does anybody have anything that's on their mind? Anything that they've been working with that they think they need clarification with? Anything so far, Lynn?
Not yet. I'm also curious just how many people are actually using this work. But again, there is a chat section on the live stream. So if you want to look for that, or you can turn on your mic and ask a question or give any feedback if you like.
One thing that was a challenge, I think, for some of the people that took the chakra workout, and that is really like a very complete and in-depth series of processes that really moves the system toward the alignment that I'm talking about, and it gives you the tools to create that alignment in different ways, depending on how you're feeling that day, the way you enter into the practice that day. There's lots of options. One of the things that people were kind of concerned with is that they couldn't feel the rotation, the direction of rotation of the chakra. And I referred to that in the course a lot of times like the movement of the chakra, the rotation. So there was also the idea that with the mind, that once you feel the chakra, that you can apply techniques to balance the chakra, to free it, to stabilize it through tractioning. So the mind actually feels this kind of bioplasmic traction, front and back. Or you can pull them more inward. Now, depending on how you feel, like sometimes as you start to understand the sensation, you might feel that the chakra is just too open. It's too, like you're losing and leaking energy. So you might want to feel like you're pulling that back in. When you start, I think it's good to just say to yourself, if you think you feel it, then you probably do. So you've got this possibility to traction, to pull in, also to traction the front and pull in the back, and the reverse, traction the back and pull in the front. And the other thing is that when you detect the direction of flow, that you would reverse that, traction it, and then kind of let it go and just feel to see where it goes back. So sometimes it will stay in the reverse direction, but a lot of times it will shift back to the original direction, and you'll find that the front and the back feel more harmonized. And right at that moment, you may notice a lot of different effects. Now, you may just notice that it feels better, but you may also notice that in that moment that your whole system feels relieved, or your breathing feels deeper, or suddenly you have some kind of idea or information that comes to you that could be useful for you. The thing is, though, that a lot of people, well, I don't know about a lot, but quite a few, say that, well, I really am not picking up the direction that the chakra is flowing. I'm not picking up clockwise or counterclockwise. So I wanted to talk about that. And again, if you have questions, please ask. The first exercise that we did in the chakra workout, and that we do in a lot of our courses, is to feel the sensation of a point, like an acupuncture point. Now, again, some of these acupuncture points are like what they call minor chakras, like the palms and the area of the bottom of the foot, where we have the acupuncture point kidney 1. That's also like what we could call a minor chakra. And so what we were doing was stimulating one side and feeling this sensation of numb and tingling come to that point that we stimulated. I know that I'm just reviewing this right now. And then once you connect to it with your mind, that numb and tingling or even heat sensation starts to intensify. It becomes more, and it spreads to the back of the hand, out to the fingers, maybe up into the wrist. And we also did an exercise where we would bring it back more to a point and then also release it. So hopefully you're working with that, because just that introductory exercise can be a very powerful exercise. And once you get it, it's something that you can just do for a minute. And you can do it on any acupuncture point. And you can look those points up to see what they're connected to, what they're good for, and use the ones that may be helpful for balancing and helping your condition. Depending if you have some kind of physical or emotional condition that you're struggling with. So anyway, once you would get this intensifying and spreading of the sensation, then you go to the other side, but you don't stimulate it manually. You just connect your mind there, and you find that numb and tingling will come. It will intensify and spread. And eventually, you get the same amount of sensation on the one that you stimulated as the one that you did not stimulate. And so, after practicing that with the Heart Governor 8 point, center of the palm, with the the kidney 1 point, the bottom of the foot, and I think in the exercise we also did where we feel all 4 points together. And once you get that, you start to notice that the feeling in your body and the feeling in your, how you feel changes. You get lighter, you feel lighter, and you start to feel more in sync. And that exercise, just by itself, can be extremely useful. So I really encourage you to get that one. And eventually, you can bring the sensation into points without any manual stimulation. So I know that if I go to these points here, which we did in the last course, lung 1, without touching them, if I just bring my attention to, usually I can do these just both together. And suddenly, when the numb and tingling comes, there's a couple of effects that, for me, come consistently. And one is that as soon as I get the numb and tingling, it seems to lift my body and traction my spine. And that feels very good. And the other thing is I almost always get a release of my breath. And so that also feels like a very relieving sensation. Another good point that I use on a regular basis is the stomach 36 point, the Sanin Ko, and that's a good whole body stimulation. It's good for the whole body energy system. All right, so that exercise is the fundamental, basic exercise, because it shows us that when we can activate that sensation in a point or in a chakra, that the mind now, our consciousness, is connected to that point or chakra, and the mind or the consciousness now is directing the flow, is now involved with how that flow is moving. And we can detect lack of balance and synchrony, like sometimes a wobbling, sometimes one seems to be accelerating and the other one is like stuck. And we can use different techniques to slow an overly active one, a hyperactive one down. And we can use techniques to release one that just doesn't seem like it can get a smooth flow, a smooth circulation. So those are the things we want to look for. And when we get that synchrony, that smooth circulation, and we talked about that in the chakra workout, when we get that circulation, that's really all we need to do. And then just be patient over time, because the result of that synchrony, that smooth flow in the chakras and the energy system, will eventually start to influence the circumstances internally and externally. And so you just do it, you enjoy it, and then you observe. And when small degrees of change take place, you honor them, you celebrate them, because small degrees add up and become larger and larger pieces of the transformation. So I really want to encourage you that. However, the point that I wanted to get to, and did anyone ask any questions yet? Okay, so I'm going to take a break and answer a question.
Well, one is a comment. Francesca said, I find that working with the chakras in my etheric body is the most successful for me, and then I pull or flow it through my physical body. Working with the cranial bones, I was shown that the iliums have a butterfly wing motion. I tuned into that in my body and have been using it in treatment very successfully.
Okay, well, that sounds like also something that I personally encourage is to, find your own unique and creative ways of using these materials. The sensation that I've been talking about now is kind of the interface between the etheric and the physical body. And so when we feel that sensation, it really shows us that the vibration, the frequency of the chakra is penetrating. And when it penetrates into the physical body, that's where it has the opportunity to influence physical functions. And physical functions give rise to the emotional state and to the mental state. Now, it can work, of course, the opposite direction. Anyway, this idea of really tuning in and being able to produce the sensation, the numb, tingling, or heat sensation, is the whole idea of connecting with the mind, but also having it the alignment between the physical and the etheric and the whole entire energy body. Is there any other questions there?
Anna Maria said, when I connect the root and crown chakras and feel the two rotations, do I need to bring them to the same direction of rotation if they rotate differently?
You can see what happens if they're going in opposite directions. And also check to see that if they're going in opposite directions, see if they're not wobbling. And, if they're going in opposite directions, but it feels like a stable column of energy flow, then see what it brings to you. I'm, for the last period of time, working with bringing them into the same direction and the whole column connecting into the same direction of flow. But also the effect, I'm checking with the effect of moving it clockwise and also counterclockwise. So this is something, for discovery of not only that it creates this feeling of balance, moves us toward this energy alignment and all the things we've been talking about, but also discovery of things yet to come. Any others, Lynn? We're good? All right.
That root and chakra thing that she asked about the directions, I've been having an experience pretty consistently where like the inner part of the column is going one way and the outer part of the column then is going another. Once they're connected and have stabilized a little.
Okay, yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, and then it becomes more of a torus where there's like instead of them rotating along a horizontal axis, it becomes more like flowing into the crown and the root at the same time, going through the middle, coming out again, like a torus, like a donut. But the rotation is more like this. Okay. Anyway.
No. So, yeah, there's a lot of actual variance of how energy will flow. And what I talked about now and also in the previous courses, these are like the fundamental grounding places, the foundation. Once those are in place, there's a lot of variations that are there to discover. There's like figure 8 movement, moving through the chakras horizontally. There's the one that Lynn just talked about, where energy's entering through the root, energy through the crown, meeting and discharging like that. There's also kind of the movement of the atom in each one of the chakras, but also in the whole energy system. But I try not to talk about that too much right now, because I think that there's so much discovery and so much benefit by mastering these basics that I'm talking about. And even at that, the basics of like detecting the direction of flow, detecting the harmony between the front and back, the realigning and synchronizing of front and back, that's a lot of work. That's a lot to discover. And also, what I was talking about in the very beginning is that when we do that, naturally there are these, well, we could call them side effects of realization, change of situation, decreased friction in relations, and stimulation of creativity. So for me right now, even though I do pick those movements up, and I may sometimes go with them and see where they take me, I like to stay with this fundamental part, because there's already so much there and it's so rich. And the more I do that, it's like building a good muscular base, strength, so that when these more high frequency movements like the figure 8 and this atomic movement in the chakra, those are very high frequency, but you have to have a way to ground those into the present. And in the present, you're in a physical body. And so we don't want to become disconnected, because that can lead to actual negative effects. This is why I'm encouraging you to really focus and master these basics. Now,
we had a question. Francesca did say sometimes she feels the chakras go into this infinity motion, and she asked, what is that?
That's a natural flow of a certain energy frequency layer within the chakras. It's not like the chakras just, a lot of times you have alternate current in a chakra. Sometimes, depending on the frequency, it's not just like kind of like a disc. It's kind of more like a water fountain. Like, if you look down at a water fountain, the water comes up and then it kind of reaches a peak and then like that. So there's all these, as you go into the higher frequency layers, then you start to see that there's these other patterns of energetic movement that are there. And if you focus on that, that becomes the dominant flow in that moment. So, like I said, as long as you feel like you're grounded and that you're at a point where you're able to reconcile these high frequencies with your human life, with your physical life, then by all means, enjoy. However, if you're feeling like you're not grounded, if you're having a hard time with your physical human life, then you want to go back more to the place where you're grounding, interfacing with the physical dimension. Because I'll just say one more time, there's so much to be realized at that level. And at the same time, for most people, it keeps them emotionally and psychologically balanced in order to deal with their own internal changes, their world of relationships, and at this point, with the world at large, which goes through its own cycles of friction and decay, of divergence and convergence. So this is something that we have to stay aware of. There is a certain point where we have to be clear with ourselves, honest with ourselves, and make the choices that, it's always tempting to want to jump ahead, to really go all the way. And I understand that very well. I'm just encouraging that the basic information that was presented as an example in the Chakra Workout, master that. And to master things, whether you're a musician, an artist, mastery always comes from command of the basics, command of the fundamentals. So, you can have the greatest improvisational musician. They're going to have mastery of the basic scales and harmonies. A painter is going to understand the flow of his brushstroke, the choice of his colors, according to his own perceptions. And this is an art form. Light body activation or chakra balancing, the whole interplay with the energy body and the physical body is an art form. And that's why it can be so creative. So not to sound like a broken record, but master the basics. And if every once in a while you want to take an excursion into one of these higher frequencies where you feel these elliptical movements, there's so many different possibilities. There's also interchange between all the chakras, movements that are there that connect them. There are certain pairs of chakras that you may suddenly notice that the solar plexus and the heart are doing something that are, because this happens at a certain frequency. It's there. All right, so as we go on in time and we communicate with each other, I'll always be very curious what you're discovering and, the things that are coming to you from doing this practice. Any others? Okay, so now I want to get to this one point. For those of you that especially are having difficulty feeling the circulatory flow, like is it going clockwise, counterclockwise, feeling the traction, there's like a simpler level that you can work with. And that is, let's say, all right, well, the chakra. Okay. But even when we were trying to detect the direction of flow, the first step was to detect the sensation, the numb tingling, let's say the solar plexus. And so we're not looking for the direction of flow. We're not looking for the traction. We're just looking, can we produce the sensation? And to help, if you need it, you can do a little pressure, a little bit of massage. And sticking with the solar plexus, you can reach back and around the 11th and 12th thoracic, where the curve goes from kyphosis and just starts to go into lordosis right there. And that'll tune you into that area. And you say, well, okay, there's a sensation from the massage, but then you'll notice when your mind connects, it expands. And then you can expand the sensation, like we did in the palms or the feet, and then you can bring it back to, and you can use an image like a coin or a crystal, and then exercise by spreading the sensation, bringing it back to a focal point. So that's something that you can do. Now, eventually, most of the time, you want to get to the point where you can bring the sensation there without massage or tapping. But on a particular day, maybe you're not that tuned in. I find that, well, why be stubborn and think, well, I have to only produce it with my mind. I feel like this would be a good place for me to make a connection, so I'll do some kind of stimulation. Most of the time, especially after working with this for so long, I don't have to do that. Anyway, the sensation, here's a couple of things about the sensation. The sensation is motion. Think about it. In order for you to have like this tingling or numb sensation, and it's not like numb lack of feeling, it's somehow a numbness of enhanced feeling. So it's a little bit different. So in order to produce that sensation, there has to be movement of chi there. Okay, so it may not be that you're feeling the direction or the tractioning, but as soon as you enhance that numb or tingling, and even if you do stimulation, this is introducing chi, this is introducing energy. All right, so sensation is motion. And then just to repeat something from those courses, sensation is information. Now that's something we can work with a little bit later, but I wanted to just, make that connection. We create the sensation and we realize, okay, now we are feeling motion there. Now the next thing you can do, and this you can refer back to the palm or bottom of the foot exercise, that you may notice that you can feel the front or the back more than the other one. And it may feel like, and I'll just use that the front is, you feel that more now. Could be the reverse. And you feel it, and it feels like it's bigger, and it's penetrating into the body more. And then you go to the back, and it feels smaller, more vague. So what you want to do is try to get these, is then bring the mind in a way back and forth until you get more equal, and then eventually like a joining between the sensation through the body. And when that happens, another thing that you might notice is there's can be kind of like an elastic sensation. And so you'll, first you want to notice whether they're the same. And if not, bring your attention to the one that's more, that's smaller, more vague. And work with that one to become equal to the one that's more present. And then you may feel them connect and kind of move like that. And you want to try to bring that movement in synchrony, and that there's an elastic sensation in the movement. So that's something that you can notice. Now, there's a lot of variables to this. You may notice that the back one, you may notice like the front one, it just feels, and the back one feels more solid. And so you can then work with the front one to bring it more into the sensation of the one that's more solid, because that's one maybe more grounded. And when it feels like this, it may feel like you're losing energy there. It's all over the place. Notice what kind of thought process comes to you, like how you know, when you feel it, like it feels like blank, like you're all over the place. It feels like it's wobbly. It feels like it's got gaps in it. It feels like there's holes in it. So whatever kind of description comes to you, and then if the other one seems more solid, then you can work with that one in terms of kind of bringing this one in, reining it in, corralling it back to a more stable sensation. Now, that's a lot of steps. And the main thing, though, is that if you're not feeling the rotation or this tractioning, go back to a more basic place with this, because it's very effective anyway. And it will also lead you to, at some point, feeling the direction of the flow and movement. But I wanted to say that for now, that doesn't matter. What matters is that you get this harmonizing of the effect, and to recognize that this is motion if you feel the numb and tingling, and that you can balance those out, working with each of the you can work with each of the 5 horizontal chakras, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and you can also work with that with the root and the crown, harmonizing that way. And when it's the root and the crown, you may notice that you have the numb and tingling, and then it permeates all the way through the body. So I'm just saying, do that on a regular basis. And as you do it and you feel that the body relaxes, the mind and emotions relax, you'll start to notice that afterwards, that just when you re-engage with a project or a person, that you just feel lighter. And whatever goals you may have, that's one thing. But just to feel afterwards lighter, softer, more embracing, more flexible, this is a really great thing. And so beyond that is a bonus. But in that moment, that's something that's I think that feels really well, and that you can also derive a lot of pleasure from. I know that when I come out of doing these processes, that whatever I encounter, and I'm saying almost always, I'm not going to say always, but almost always, I just feel that my perspective is more positive, more seeing like the possibility, tuning in more to the positive point, and not getting all stuck in what I might usually see as the negative point. And so, again, back to this thing is, use this for enjoyment. Use this for the pleasure of just feeling well. And then day to day, without a lot of interference, without a lot of engineering, just watch how the transformation of what's happening in your life goes. Now, as I mentioned way back at the beginning, that as the energy alignment takes place, the goals and the vision that you have for yourself will also adjust with that. Because a lot of times, like what we're thinking we want to do, our conditioning, is based on these misalignments, these malfunctions we have at the deepest core level of who we are in the energy system. So there's a little bit of a paradox that our vision is met through aligning, but our vision is also transformed and altered sometimes through the aligning. One side point to that, to some degree, what you're already doing has a lot to do with what you actually want to do. So even though if you think, oh, I really want to change everything, or I'm not happy with this, that, and the other thing, a lot of times things that you thought were getting in your way, once your energy system aligns, you start to realize, oh, this is useful. This is a mechanism that's actually working for me, but I have not been able to see it because it's kind of in a different wrapping than I expected. So just keep that in mind also with this transformation. Things that were there that were just hanging around that didn't seem important, suddenly you may see that they're valuable devices for moving forward toward your vision and toward your, toward the goals that you have, to what you want to do actually, and manifest from a soul level. Yeah.
Francesca said, when I'm working with the chakras in my emotional and mental body, there's a big difference in sensation. Is it good to work with encouraging that? It feels good.
I mean, it sounds good. Yeah, it sounds like something that's valuable. And those ideas are just a little bit, they're expanding from this basic framework that I'm presenting. So there's a lot in there. Just notice the effect of it. And if it seems to sustain as something positive, yeah, by all means. If you think that something happens that suddenly there's a gap or some kind of like breakdown between those levels of interaction and where you feel grounded, then you might want to pull it back a little bit. It's really up to each person to notice and decide. You really have to notice the effect and the influence, both day to day. But like I'm saying is that if you just step back and learn patience, when you do this every day, you just start to observe that things are shifting without a lot of interference. Because you're guiding it from a deeper level than where the conditioned conscious mind usually gets in the way. Are there any others?
But that made me think, I love having this as a part of like toolkit of what to do. Say if I want to adjust something or something's not going well in my life. We all have heard like, oh, you could have a cup of tea or work with your emotions or do some counseling or different behavioral things or maybe run around the block or do a workout. But to go and work on our energy system, it's just even more basic to me than all those other things. And I love that I can do it from wherever I am. It needs nothing external. And in my experience, it always creates a positive shift in whatever challenge I was experiencing. Even if I just spend 15 seconds feeling my root chakra. If I feel unclear, I'm already at least 10% more clear.
Yeah, so, and then the other things that you mentioned can be really useful as well to notice, because a lot of times things are happening and we kind of just, the effects, how we feel, it's all happening more like on an unconscious, subconscious level, because we're focused on more like the gross life that's going on around us, the immediate thing that requires our attention, but we're not really realizing the way that it feels to us physically or emotionally. So I think that, if someone does counseling, it's a way to become more noticing of how things influence like your feelings and your thoughts. Any others, Lynn? Okay, so if you have any questions about any of the courses that we have done, be happy to answer those. If you have any comments about what I'm talking about, anybody have anything to add to this idea? Guess I got chalk all over it. Another thing that can throw people off is chakra location. And a lot of the ideas about where is the chakra, because it come from looking in a book, and they'll have kind of a figure there, and they'll have the location of the chakras. And some books will specify, where is the chakra. Like they might say that it's between, that the back of the throat chakra is between cervical 5 and 6. And so all those ideas I think are useful. The crown, the top of the head, I think governing vessel 20, as an example. That the root chakra is at the perineum. And those ideas about location are coming from an anatomical point of view. For me, it's more interesting to look at the location of the chakra as being more connected to the etheric body. And the etheric body is more fluid. It's more liquid. And what happens over time, if the physical body becomes compressed, which it does through like emotional dysfunction, sometimes the exertion of the mind or physical trauma, all those kind of things, the compression and the rigidity over time of the physical body causes in a way like a disconnect to some extent with the etheric body. And as we restore the connection between the physical and the etheric body, we can use those anatomical locations for chakra location, and we need to be flexible with that because it's moving in this more liquid environment. The frequency of it is grounded more in the etheric body, penetrating and energizing physical functions. So sometimes you may feel, as an example, the root chakra at the perineum, but you may also feel it more back at the coccyx. You may feel it more moving toward the front, more toward the pubic symphysis. So my recommendation would be to notice where the sensation comes to you and where the focal point of that sensation is, and consider that could be in that moment in the etheric level where the chakra is located. And over time, what we want to do is create flexibility. We can do that through our exercises, through motion, through better nutrition, but we want to become more flexible so that the body also is more fluid and is able to adapt to what's happening and changing in the etheric body. So again, when you feel the sensation and the focal point, it might go through your mind, well, but that's not where the chakra is. And it could be. But you could also consider that in that moment, according to this connection between the physical body, which is more dense, less mobile, and the etheric body, which is much more fluid, liquid, that's like where they're interchanging more dynamically. So the actual exact location of the chakra will shift. The crown may be right at governing vessel 20, but it also might be sometimes feel like it's more forward or a little bit more backward, to the back, more to the posterior. So I think that's something else that you could consider. And if you're someone that wants to be really exact and really precise, You know, that has its advantages, but sometimes it can get in the way. And sometimes it can be really great just to let it go and just see if you just take it where it is, where it will take you. So I wanted to also say that about chakra location. Hopefully that's interesting for you. We're kind of light on questions right now. I thought that everybody would be having like lots of questions from these courses.
I'm curious how much people are doing the exercises.
Yeah, maybe real quickly you could just type in on your keyboard or your phone, whatever you're using to see this. How often are you working with these ideas? Are you working with them daily? Are you working with them weekly? Or like me, working with them a lot of times, several times a day. And actually, you know, usually we think of like doing this while we're sitting, either on the floor or on a chair. But a lot of times I will be experiencing this when I'm moving. Like if I take a walk in the woods, I can be fully aware of the motion that's going on in my energy body. And so you might want to notice that. Now, of course, if you need to focus on something, like if you're driving or doing something like cutting vegetables, you know, you want to be more focused in the physical world. But if you're walking in the nature, you may notice that you can also feel your chakras. Here's an example. I like to take a walk in the woods near me. And at one point in that walk, there's a really steep hill. And to be honest with you, when I get to that steep hill, some days I'm not up for it. I mean, I know I'm going to do it. I know I'll get through it. But it's like, okay, here we go. Chug up the hill. And after a while, what I recognized is that if I brought my attention to the solar plexus, and for some reason with me it worked this way, you may find it in a different way. Now, I'm going up a really steep hill now, and if I bring my attention to the solar plex in the front and the sacral chakra in the back, suddenly I have a lot of energy. And sometimes if I keep my attention on those two chakras, the next thing I know, I'm at the top of that hill, and I didn't even really notice walking up. And so this is really fun for me, and very, very interesting how when I keep my attention there, I'm not thinking about what it takes to move up the hill. It's just like I glide up the hill somehow. And another thing is, a lot of times when I get to the top of the hill, my breath is accelerated and my heartbeat's going. And what I do there also is I bring my attention to the heart chakra, to the solar plex. And in this case, I do work with the rotation. And as I get that rotation, very quickly, my heart rate and my breath comes back to normal. And I'm pretty sure that it's much faster than if I wasn't doing that at all. So this is just kind of a very practical way that I'm using this kind of work when I'm moving outside in the in the woods, in nature.
A few people wrote how they're using it. Helen Fung wrote, regrettably, rather erratically. Andrea wrote she uses it daily. Claudia Rydell, I've been doing more of the self-adjusting cranial course. I'm going to revisit the chakras and get back to daily work there. This has been very inspiring and beneficial. Francesca says, I use it daily. This is saving my life. I'm not kidding. Thank you so much to your dedication to sharing your work, and Lynn as well. The podcasts are gold. Me and how I interact with life is completely different from last year. And Helen wrote, she does more frequently use the cranial adjustments when she has pain in the spine or sacrum.
Okay.
And Dawn says, I tune in occasionally. There is awareness in the background. It does take, it's really, for me, it's been a little bit of a process to integrate and even just remember, oh, I could just do this in my daily life.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I mean, it's the enthusiasm generator for me, is that I do it, usually at least once a day, and sometimes several days. And then there's also this thing where, like Dawn said, it's operating in the background and I see it. Now, I recently went through a period of time where got engaged with a few other things, and I wasn't doing it as regularly as usual. And I noticed that I started to fall back a little bit into a little bit more narrowing of my perception in terms of like global events and other things that were closer to me. So now I started to get back to every day. And the thing for me also is what I was talking about several times now, is that it's not a burden to do this or I have to do it. It's just a activity that brings a lot of relief, pleasure, enthusiasm, excitement, all these things, and it's consistent for me. And I'd like to encourage you to go to it in that way. Just like we would go again to hang out with a friend that we like to be with, eat a meal that we enjoy, watch a show, because that's kind of an entertainment. We're being entertained with someone else's vision, but this way, we're being more entertained with our own vision of how things are. Anything that we seek in the human life that gives us stimulus and excitement. Some people get that from exercising. I certainly do sometimes. Your sexual activity. So all those things are like different kinds of stimulation and excitement and pleasure, and I put this in an equal and elevated category with that. So I really look forward to it, and it's constantly bringing me new layers of awareness. And most of the time, I'm not expecting anything. I'm kind of expecting maybe that I'm just going to feel this kind of lightness and relief because it's so consistent. And then whatever else comes is a bonus, and it's almost like all the time something new is coming. Now, as most of you know, I practice body work. I started out practicing Shiatsu, and then I developed some other ideas about it that I kind of put under an umbrella called Shin. And a lot of times when I'm doing this work, I also have insights about my body work practice, whether it's a technique, it's an approach to working with clients in general, or sometimes a specific client. I also love playing music, and my real passion in music is writing songs, and so I'm constantly getting ideas about that. That sums it up for me. I hope to, I don't hope to, but I was thinking that I would ask the people on this live stream, what they think about doing something like we're doing right now on a more regular basis, and what ideas you would have about how that would work. So if you want to tell us, write to us, email us after the live stream today, we would love to hear. We have some ideas. We surely don't have to do it, but like I said, we enjoy doing these live streams and sharing the information. It's also really further enjoyment for us when you're sharing your experiences and asking some questions that kind of stimulate the conversation. This is why we've put out these programs and courses, and why we want to share this time with you. So are there any other things? It's a very quiet audience today.
I had some...
Except for Lynn.
I always have something to say. The self-adjustment of the spine, cranial system, and ribcage has been one of my favorite things ever. Like I'm listening to videos and processes from it almost every day sometimes, and it is a treat for me. It's like that's what if I have time in the afternoon, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to go lay down and listen to a lecture or do a process. But consistently, still one of the sutures is so challenging for me to connect to, and that's the lambdoid. Like the lambdoid and my upper thoracic. And so I've tried different things and been pretty patient about it. Doing different like motions with my shoulders and upper back first, like different stretches to stimulate that area. Sometimes just rolling back and forth on my back to stimulate the sacrum, since that's so related to the occiput and that suture. So often using movements. What's something else I've done? I guess I've been practicing trying to feel the vertebrae and the sutures from the inside out rather from the outside in. Like instead of imagining or feeling my skull from the outside, I wend my consciousness from the inside out to feel the suture from the inside of the cranium. And that seems to be helpful for me. But I just wondered if you could, I mean, I assume that that means that part of my system at the time, for now at least, is the more rigid part of the spine or has more issues either with the suture or the spine. But I wondered what you had to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be the area that's having like more compression and lack of motion. You can always just go to this manual stimulation, massaging the points along the lambdoid suture. Same thing with any of these sutures, like you can do the squamosal or the lambdoid. The thing, so you could do that direct stimulation, and that will help you to tune into the sensation there. And you can take something and just tap the whole thoracic spine. I mean, I would recommend that if you're having if you're having difficulty tuning in. And so then you can feel that sensation, and you can go back to what I talked about with the chakras. Because when you feel the sensation, there's also a subtle pulsing there. And that pulsing can also be a doorway to feeling the cranial motion. So those are just a couple of hints for you. Feel the sensation. Notice that there's a tingling, and that tingling is like and the numbness has a pulsing to it. And then, like in the course, we were feeling working with that, feeling the suture, and then we were feeling that part of the spine separately, and then we were feeling them together. And the final part of that was to feel them together and to feel the cranial movement with that. And that's creating a feedback loop in the proprioceptive system between the related suture point and the spine, and helping to create more flexibility and what you might call alignment, but I would call it more like vertebrae flow. Alignment is more based on the fixed point idea of the vertebrae, and the vertebrae are not at fixed points. They're constantly in a subtle range of movement, and when it gets stuck, then it appears to be fixed. And if it's fixed at this point, to be so-called aligned, it has to go back to this point. But in reality, it should be flowing in a whole range from right, left, center through there. So that's how that mechanism and that perception takes place. And I would really recommend it. The other thing that you can notice is that all the sutures are related to the parietal bones. These are the parietals, right? And so the parietal bones are moving like bird wings in the cranial movement. And the lateral part kind of moves up But when that happens, along this center line suture, that depresses a little bit. So it's moving like that. And it moves, so the center line here related to the lumbars is being influenced. You can feel it there. In the back, with the occiput and the parietals, there you have the lambdoid suture. And here, between the temporal and the parietal, you've got the squamosal. Also, between the frontal and the parietals, you have the coronal. So one of the ways to really work with the whole spine is to feel the flow of the parietals, and then you can kind of move your attention around to each suture, and then you can feel all the sutures together. So the kind of things that we do in our spare time for fun. Yeah, but again, it's not only, what you're trying to accomplish by doing that, but it's also the effect that it creates moving forward. And so this is up for all of us to discover. And I'm hoping that if we do future live streams, and again, I'd like you to, if you're interested in doing more live streams, that you give me some ideas about how that would work, the timing, the frequency, and how we can do that. But also preparing a little bit about with some questions, and preparing a little bit with like presenting some of the things that you notice from doing this, because it's in the noticing the effects, immediate and long range, that gives the inspiration to actually do this. And that's what's kind of captured my attention about it. As many of you know, that for a long time I was teaching body work, and I was teaching light body activation work, and now I've kind of just, not teaching much. I'm working on a few new things here and there, and I'm working with my my hobbies and things like that. This is what captures my attention, and what I'm noticing from doing this, just kind of in my own day to day, just like what you're all doing in your day to day, and just sharing that. So I guess if nobody has any more comments or questions, I think we'll wrap it up. And I hope that it's been valuable. I would love to hear from you afterwards, and let me know what you think. Let me know what's your ideas are, and I wish you the best of success with moving forward. And I hope that a lot of these things are as good to you as they have been to me. Thanks for coming. Thanks a lot to Lynn, because she's always so busy with the preparation, informing everyone, taking registrations, setting up all the mics and all of the equipment. And of course, when we're done, we're going to break it all down. But certainly it's a pleasure and worthwhile to do it. So I wish you the best today, moving forward. Hope to hear from everyone soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.